Hi, John, the redhead family therapy guy, coming at you with authentically red hair and a real message. Today's thought, my mental health thought for the day today, is one of just where like the tire meets the road with healthy living. You know, I like to just like really boil things down to kind of their essence, in principle and in practice. And really, healthy living, having good relationships. And when I say relationships, I mean with ourselves, with our loved ones, whether it's at work or whatever it might be. And so much of mental health is about emotional regulation, is so much about where our attention is. And with that attention, what is happening in our thoughts and our body responding to where our attention is. And a lot of the fallout that we have, a lot of the failure that we have, a lot of the distress that we feel, and this can be, as a result of trauma or difficult relationships, comes out of the natural man or the physical or the survival instinct. Or, I've mentioned, I think almost in all of my videos about, operating or being activated or living from survival or from our amygdala versus getting our frontal lobe and our heart into what we're doing, right? We can be reactive out of survival, which all of us, especially when we've had traumatic moments, we've had to kind of survive through something, versus being intentional. And there's this aspect of metaphysical, reality, kind of like the higher self, or, for Christians, like the spirit of truth, or the sense of the moral of what is correct and right, kindness and love and grace and forgiveness, classic, Christian virtuous principle or principles of virtue, versus just surviving and responding out of self-preservation. And oftentimes when we do our worst towards ourselves or to others, it's out of survival. It's out of protection, so that we don't end up hurt, or because we've been hurt, we protect ourselves in a particular way. But really, healthy living is about being intentional in these ways that aren't natural. It's not the natural inclination to be gracious. It's not the natural inclination to forgive and subject ourselves to being hurt by someone again. But the things that really allow for meaningful, healthy relationships, or to have joy, or to have fulfillment, or to have peace, require us to kind of put off this natural and do what instead is wise and intentional. But again, like so often when I come and talk about things in practice, it's really about practice. It's about learning to do that well, and something we have to work at. And so we have to develop this awareness of that reactivity, and instead develop deliberate things that we do around where we are and how we want to be. And we've got to do that in regards to kind of the most fundamental way to start to work on that is to be in the here and now, not to be preoccupied about what happened in the past and live from kind of this depressed state of where I failed, or not worried and nervous about what could possibly happen in the future and what terrible thing could happen, but instead learning to live from and be where we are in this moment right now, to ground ourselves and to breathe and to just look around and be where we are. So I'd like to invite you to be intentional and present where you are right now, versus preoccupied with what could happen or what did happen. And do that in a way that allows you to breathe and think and be where you are. And maybe that's a little unpleasant, like if you intentionally do something like a cold plunge, or maybe that is walking out and putting your feet in the ground and looking and appreciating the beauty of a fall day or a spring morning or a sunset or a sunrise or whatever it might be. Take a moment to ground yourself. And you can even go down the rabbit hole and research out all the ways that you can ground. There's probably a million different ways to do that. But that's your thought for today, is that mental health starts with being intentional from the here and now versus just living out of survival instincts. Because often survival does not set us up for peace and fulfillment and joy. There you go. Like, follow, throw me a DM, ask me a question. You'll get another thought on another day.